Well, my influences definitely came from looking at a lot of de Kooning paintings and a lot of like the Book of Kells, like I said, and street graffiti and stuff. But my schooling was a very, very rigorous schooling. Like they would, put your paintings out in front of you and say, does your Aunt Betty or Cousin Susan like these? And you say, well, yeah. And they say, well, save them for them because they're going to love them. What have you got for me? What have you got, And it was just like this teacher I had. He was amazing, and it would just cut you off at the knees. It was brutal. But then other days, he'd take out a Picasso book, right? And you'd be in your studio, working away, and he'd put the Picasso book down, and he'd say, "Look, you had a much better day than Picasso today, much better. You can see his arm are kind of sloppy and disorganized. He doesn't really care, but look how much stronger yours is. Yours is you got a lot more power than Picasso today." And it just took it all down. It just evened the whole thing out. So pictures weren't this great reverent thing you had to aspire to. They were just pictures, And sometimes they didn't even call them paintings. Oh, you're working on a picture today. Yeah, it's a picture. It's making a picture. And that kind of like build you up, cut you down. Build you up, cut you down. It was just this kind of brutal fighting thing. And it was the Swain School of Design is where I went to art school, and it totally changed my life. Like I was such a mess before I walked in there. It completely gave me everything I am today. And it just had this way of like, if you want to be a real artist, you got to be able to break yourself down, build it up. Break it down, build it up. Because then you own it. There's no part of your picture you're going to fall in love with it. You can't change. And when you do fall in love with something and you're trying to hold on to it in a little corner you love, you got to kill it. If you can kill it and bring it back, because you did it once, you can do it again, But each layer of paper underneath here is a structure that at one time I felt was the right one. And I know that they're not the right ones now because they've been rearranged, but each one of those is sort of like a little bit of a girder or a little piece of structure that holds the one on top of it together. You know what I mean? And I can't get this, even though this one's obviously not done. I wouldn't be here if I didn't have all those other decisions that were changed now. Do you know what I mean? That's the underlying skeleton of the picture. And if a picture has good bones, you can do anything with it. I remember one time I was watching this Clint Eastwood movie, and Clint Eastwood's in this bar and he's drinking, and this guy comes in and he's going to shoot him, and the guy's like, sweating, and he's not going to do it, right? So he loses his nerve and he leaves, And then a few minutes later, Clint Eastwood's still drinking at the bar. The guy comes in and now he's going to kill him. He's going to shoot him. He's shaking, And Clint Eastwood looks at him and says something along the lines of, "You've got to know your limits." And I remember it hit me so hard because I always thought painting could do everything. Like painting was omnipresent. It could do anything and everything. And I realized that it can't do everything, but it can do some things better than it can do anything else can. And once you know that about painting or any kind of art, I think you know that its limits are immense, but they can't do everything. Then you can hone in and sort of find the right rhythm for you. Now that rhythm shouldn't be one little click. Oh, I do my little hand mark this way, and this is going to be great for 40 years. You got to be able to keep challenging yourself. But painting or any kind of art, I think, does its one thing better than anything else can do it. And Clint Eastwood taught me that in the movie because I thought you got to know your limits. And I was like, whoa. I grew up in a really tiny New England town in Massachusetts, and there was a rumor when we were kids that there were 2 women accused of witchcraft buried in the hometown cemetery. So that was part of it. It was also a house, a completely circular house without a corner in it. And the rumors were that if there was a corner in the room, a devil lived there. So this house was totally circular. It's still in the hometown. It's crazy. But also there were people buried who died of smallpox in my hometown. So anyway, that sort of New England Gothic thing, that sort of like Salem-ish sort of thing has just permeated my childhood. And I think that definitely influences the work that I do. Like it's so part of the way I think about things and it's sort of building a picture through. Like I want to make a picture that's a complete image, but that also relates back to where they came from. The process was just very organic. Like I didn't plan any of this. I just had a bunch of paper lying around the studio, and things weren't going well. And so I did some god awful part of the picture I wasn't happy with. So I said, well, I need to freshen this up. So I just cut out a piece of paper and glued it on there, and that sort of had a certain freshness and crispness to it, that I really loved. And so then I started playing with the paint back and forth, And then the best thing about it is I can work really fast. I can sort of like rearrange a picture in one night. You know, I can just sort of like over and over and over again. And the more you spank that painting, the more you slap it, and you get that variation of color I couldn't get in other ways, you know, because it dries quickly and you can sort of put it on there and take it off and put it on there and take it off. And then, you know, if you want like a really like a crisp line or something, like if I want to add like a really crisp bit of color, I can just take out a shape like that and then like define a form much cleaner, or just the way I want to define the form, you know. So say like if I want to add a little bit of a, that's a little too red, so I want to cover it down a little more. If I want to add a little bit of a yellow highlight on her leg because she's going to be hanging on this chandelier, I can add a little bit of yellow like that, and yet also keep a little bit of the deep color of old paper underneath it, because I like that color underneath there. So then I take this and I add a little, put a little glue on there, and I just take it and add it on like that. And it doesn't take, you don't have to hold it very long, it tightens up really fast.